The transmission came from Earth on a cold morning in the Valantha capital. Every screen in the High Council chamber flickered to life without warning. The face of a human woman appeared. Her expression calm, but her eyes filled with something the council members did not recognize. It was fear. Not for herself, but for them. "This is Ambassador Thelia Chen of the United Earth Coalition," she said. "I am broadcasting on all galactic frequencies. This message is for the Valanthi Empire and any species planning to travel through Sector 77 Omega." Arbiter Kethvorin leaned back in his throne and let out a sound of disgust. His blue skin darkened with annoyance as he looked at the other council members. They shared his contempt. Earth was nothing. A small blue world filled with primitive creatures who had only discovered space travel 2 centuries ago. The Valanthi had conquered 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. They commanded 12,000 warships. Why would they listen to anything a human had to say? "Do not enter Sector 77 Omega," the human continued. "We call this region the Silence. Ships that enter do not return. We have lost vessels there. Other species have lost vessels there. We are not making threats. We are giving you a warning. Please listen." Kethvorin waved his hand, and his assistant moved to cut the transmission. But the human spoke again, and something in her voice made him pause. "We know you do not respect us. We know you think we are beneath you. But this is not about pride. This is about survival. Whatever is in that sector does not care how powerful you are. It does not care how many ships you have. It only cares that you enter. Please, do not send your fleet through the Silence." The transmission ended. The council chamber was quiet for a moment. Then laughter broke out among the gathered leaders. Kethvorin smiled coldly and stood from his throne. "The humans think they can give orders to the Valanthi Empire," he said. "They sit on their tiny world with their chemical rockets and their primitive technology, and they dare to warn us about danger." "Perhaps they are trying to trick us," suggested Admiral Vexenar. "They want us to avoid that sector so they can claim it for themselves." "Humans are not capable of such thinking," another council member said. "They are barely more intelligent than animals." Kethvorin nodded in agreement. He walked to the large window that overlooked the orbital shipyards. Thousands of warships hung in formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of the Valanthi sun. This was the Grand Armada, the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. No species had ever defeated them. No weapon had ever scratched their shields. "The humans need to learn their place," Kethvorin said. "We will send the Grand Armada through Sector 77 Omega. We will show the entire galaxy that the Valanthi fear nothing. And when we emerge on the other side, every species will know that human warnings mean nothing." The council members cheered. Orders were sent to the fleet commanders. Within hours, the Grand Armada began moving into formation. 12,000 warships carrying 2 million crew members prepared to jump into faster-than-light travel on Earth. Ambassador Thalia Chen received word that her transmission had been ignored. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Her assistant, a young man named David, stood nearby with a worried expression. "Should we try again?" he asked. "Maybe if we explain more clearly, they will not listen," Talia said quietly. "None of them ever listen. The Vorath ignored us. The Kethmari ignored us. The Sunward Collective ignored us. They all think we are too primitive to understand real danger." She walked to her window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Valanthi fleet was preparing to enter the most dangerous region in the galaxy. 2 million souls who would never come home. "Send one more transmission," she said. "Make it simple. Make it clear." David nodded and activated the communication system. Talia spoke into the microphone, her voice steady but sad. "Valanthi High Council, this is Ambassador Talia Chen. I know you will not change your course. I know you think we are beneath you. But I want you to understand something. We are not threatening you. We have nothing to gain from this warning. We have already lost ships in the Silence. We have already lost people we loved. We are begging you. Please do not do this." She paused and looked at a photograph on her desk. It showed an older man in a spacesuit, smiling at the camera. Her grandfather. He had been on humanity's first expedition into the Silence. He never came back. We know what waits in that sector, she continued. We have spent 200 years trying to understand it, trying to find a way to save the people we lost. We are not your enemies. We are trying to help you. But if you will not listen, then all I can say is this. I am sorry. I am so sorry for what is about to happen. The transmission ended. Thalia turned off the communication system and sat down heavily in her chair. David watched her with concern. There is nothing more we can do, she said. Prepare the memorial service. Memorial service. But the fleet has not even entered the sector yet. Thalia looked at him with ancient sadness in her eyes. It does not matter. The moment they decided to ignore us, they were already dead. We just have to wait for the universe to catch up. In the Velanthi command ship, a young officer named Lyrithex monitored the communication channels. She had heard the human transmissions. Unlike her superiors, she did not laugh. Something about the human ambassador's voice bothered her. It was not the voice of someone making threats. It was the voice of someone watching a tragedy unfold. Officer Lyrithex, her commander called out. Stop monitoring Earth's channels. Focus on fleet coordination. Yes, Commander, she replied. But before she switched frequencies, she noticed something strange. Earth's transmissions had stopped. Not in anger or frustration. The humans had simply gone quiet. It was as if they were already mourning something that had not happened yet. The Grand Armada jumped into faster-than-light travel. 12,000 ships carrying 2 million souls raced towards Sector 77 Omega. They expected to find empty space. They expected to prove human warnings were worthless. They expected to return as heroes. None of them would ever be seen again. The Grand Armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Sector 77 Omega. 12,000 warships spread across the void like a swarm of silver insects. On the command ship, Admiral Vexinar stood proudly at the viewing window. Behind him, hundreds of officers worked at their stations, monitoring every system. Begin the crossing, the Admiral ordered. Let us show the galaxy what Velanthi courage looks like. The fleet moved forward. Sensors detected nothing unusual. The space ahead looked empty and calm. Some officers even laughed quietly, mocking the human warnings. What danger could possibly exist in such peaceful darkness? Then the first ship disappeared. There was no explosion, no flash of light, no distress signal. One moment the destroyer Kethvarok was there, and the next moment it was simply gone. The space where it had been was empty, as if the ship had never existed. What happened? Admiral Vexinar demanded. Where did that ship go? Before anyone could answer, more ships began vanishing. 3 cruisers disappeared together. Then a carrier. Then an entire battle group of 50 vessels. Officers screamed in panic as they watched their comrades wink out of existence on their screens. Hey! Reverse course. The Admiral shouted. Get us out of here. But it was too late. The disappearances happened faster now. Ships vanished by the hundreds. The Grand Armada, the most powerful fleet in the galaxy, was being erased, like words wiped from a page. There were no weapons to fight, no enemies to target, only the cold silence of empty space swallowing everything. In exactly 30 seconds, it was over. 12,000 warships, 2 million crew members, gone without a trace. On the Velanthi homeworld, High Arbiter Kethvorin watched the tactical display in horror. One moment the screen showed thousands of green dots representing his fleet. The next moment, there was nothing. Just empty space and silence. What happened? He whispered. No one could answer him. The communication officers tried desperately to contact any surviving ships. There were none. The sensor operators searched for debris or escape pods. There was nothing. The Grand Armada had simply ceased to exist. News of the disaster spread across the galaxy within hours. Every species watched in shock as the mighty Velantha Empire lost its entire military in less than a minute. Fear replaced mockery. Questions replaced confidence. If the most powerful fleet in known space could vanish so icily, what chance did anyone else have? But one question rose above all others. What did Earth know? The humans had warned them. The primitive, Backward humans with their chemical rockets had somehow known exactly what would happen. They had begged the Volanthi not to enter that sector. They had spoken of lost ships and dangerous secrets, and they had been completely ignored. Kethvorin sat alone in his chamber, staring at the recording of Ambassador Thalia Chen's final transmission. "We are begging you," she had said. "Please do not do this." Her face had shown no anger, no satisfaction at being ignored. Only sadness, only grief. A knock came at his door. His assistant entered nervously. "Hi, Arbiter. The other council members are demanding answers. The population is in panic. Several species are cutting diplomatic ties. They say we brought this upon ourselves by ignoring the human warning." Kethvorin said nothing. He continued staring at the human ambassador's face. "Hi, Arbiter. What should we do?" "Contact Earth," Kethvorin said quietly. "Tell them we need to speak with Ambassador Chen." The assistant looked shocked. "Sir, you want to speak with the humans? After everything we have said about them?" 2 million of our people are dead," Kethvorin replied. "Or worse. And the humans tried to save them. I need to know why. I need to know what they know." The transmission was sent. For hours, there was no response. Kethvorin began to wonder if the humans would even talk to them. Why should they? The Volanthi had mocked them, ignored them, and called them primitive animals. If the situation were reversed, Kethvorin knew he would let his enemies suffer in silence. But then a response came. Ambassador Thalia Chen's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired, but her voice was calm. "Hi, Arbiter," Kethvorin. "I am truly sorry for your loss." "You knew," Kethvorin said. "You knew what would happen to our fleet. How?" "Because we have been fighting the silence for 200 years. We have lost 40,000 people learning what lives in that sector. And tell me everything." Thalia shook her head slowly. "Not over open channels. The truth about the silence is dangerous. Other species might try to investigate, and more will die. If you want answers, you must come to Earth. You must see for yourself." Kethvorin felt his pride rise up inside him. Travel to Earth? Lower himself to visit that primitive world. Every instinct told him to refuse. But then he thought of 2 million faces. 2 million Volanthi who trusted their leaders and were sent to die because of arrogance. "Very well," he said. "I will come to Earth." For the first time, something like hope flickered in Thalia's tired eyes. "Thank you, High Arbiter. Before I show you what happened to your fleet, you need to understand why we tried so hard to stop you. You need to see our memorial." "Memorial." 40,000 names, Thalia said softly. 40,000 humans who died learning the truth about the silence. Your people are not the first victims. They are only the latest, and unless we work together, they will not be the last. The transmission ended. Kethvorin sat in silence, his mind racing. For 2 centuries, his people had dismissed Earth as worthless. They had quarantined the humans, ignored their science, and mocked their achievements. In all that time, the humans had been fighting a war that no one else even knew existed, as his shuttle prepared for the journey to Earth. Kethvorin reviewed humanity's history. He found record after record of warnings sent to other species. 17 different civilizations had been told about the silence. All of them had ignored the humans. All of them had lost ships. Why did the humans keep trying? Why did they keep warning species that hated them? What kind of people spent 2 centuries trying to save their enemies? Kethvorin did not understand. But he was about to learn. Kethvorin's shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere. Through the window, he watched clouds part to reveal a world of blue oceans and green continents. It was beautiful in a simple way, not the engineered perfection of Volanthi worlds, but something natural and alive. Ambassador Thalia Chen waited for him on the landing platform. She stood alone, without guards or weapons. Kethvorin found this strange. If he had been greeting a leader whose people had mocked his species for centuries, he would have brought an army. "Hi, Arbiter," Thalia said with a small bow. "Thank you for coming." "You said you would show me the truth," Kethvorin replied. "I am here. Show me." Thalia nodded and led him to a ground vehicle. They drove in silence through a human city. Kethvorin watched the people going about their lives. They looked so ordinary, so unremarkable. How could these simple creatures know secrets that had escaped the greatest minds of the Volanthi Empire? The vehicle stopped at the entrance to a massive underground facility. Armed guards checked their identification, but their weapons were pointed at the darkness below, not at Kethvorin. They were not protecting themselves from visitors. They were protecting visitors from something else. "This is the Memorial of the Silence," Talia explained as they descended in an elevator. "It is the most sacred place on Earth." The elevator doors opened, and Kethvorin stepped into a vast underground chamber. His breath caught in his throat. The walls stretched up into darkness, and every surface was covered with names. Thousands upon thousands of names, carved into black stone and illuminated by soft light. 40,000 names, Talia said quietly. Every human who died learning the truth about Sector 77 Omega. Every scientist. Every pilot. Every volunteer who gave their life so that we might understand what we were facing. Kethvorin walked slowly along the wall, reading the names. Human names in human languages. Men and women and children. All of them gone. This started 200 years ago, Thalia continued. Humanity discovered faster-than-light travel and immediately began exploring. Our first expedition entered what we now call the Silence. 50 ships. 2,000 people. They disappeared instantly, just like your fleet. She paused at a section of the wall and touched a name. Chen Weilin. My grandfather was on that expedition. I never met him. But I grew up hearing stories about him. About all of them. Kethvorin watched her face. There was no anger in her expression. Only ancient grief. We sent more ships, Thalia said. We lost more people, but we did not give up. We needed to understand what was happening. We needed to find a way to rescue our people. It took us 50 years just to discover the basic truth. What truth? Thalia led him to a large display screen. She activated it, and a holographic image appeared, showing Sector 77 Omega. The Silence is not empty space. It is a trap built millions of years ago by a species we call the Architects. We do not know who they were or why they created it, but we know what it does. The hologram changed to show a ship entering the sector. The moment it crossed an invisible boundary, it disappeared. Ships that enter the Silence are pulled into a dimensional fold, a pocket of space-time that exists outside normal reality. From the outside, it looks like the ships simply vanish, but they do not. They are still there, still alive. They are just trapped in a place we cannot reach. Kethvorin felt his heart stop. You mean, the Volanthi fleet? They are not dead, Thalia confirmed. They are trapped. Time moves differently inside the fold. What feels like seconds outside is months or years inside. Your fleet has been trapped for what feels to them like a very long time. But they are still alive, still waiting, still hoping someone will save them. Kethvorin leaned against the wall for support. His mind struggled to process this information. 2 million Volanthi, trapped in some impossible prison, watching time pass while the outside universe moved on without them. Why? He whispered. Why would anyone build such a thing? We believe the Architects were harvesting advanced civilizations, Thalia replied. The trap targets species that have developed faster than light travel. It collects them like specimens. For what purpose? We do not know. Perhaps they plan to return someday and study their collection. Perhaps they forgot about it entirely. All we know is that the trap still works, millions of years after its creators disappeared. Kethvorin looked at the wall of names again. 40,000 humans. All of them, sacrificed to understand this ancient horror. You have known about this for 2 centuries, he said. Why did you not share this information with the galaxy? We tried, Talia replied. We sent warnings to every species we could contact. 17 civilizations ignored us. They called us liars, primitives. They entered the Silence anyway, and they all lost ships. Eventually, we realized that no one would believe us until they experienced the loss themselves. What? You kept warning us anyway. Yes. Why? Dalia looked at him with calm, steady eyes. Because no one deserves to die alone and confused in the dark. Even people who hate us. even people who mock us. Every life matters. High Arbiter. That is what we believe. That is what it means to be human. Kethvorin was silent for a long moment. Then he asked the question that burned in his heart. Can they be saved? Is there any way to rescue people from the trap? Talia smiled for the first time. It was a small smile, but it carried hope. For 200 years, we have been working on a solution. We call it quantum anchoring. It creates a connection between normal space and the dimensional fold, allowing us to pull matter back through. The technology is finally ready. We can perform small-scale extractions. A few ships at a time? Then you can save the Volanthe fleet. The Leah's smile faded. We can try, but it will require enormous resources. Energy reserves that we have been saving for decades. The extraction will drain everything we have built. It will set back our own rescue missions by years. Kethvorin understood what she was saying. Earth had been preparing to rescue their own people, the 40,000 humans trapped in the silence. If they helped the Volanthe instead, they would have to wait even longer to save their own families. Why would you do that? He asked, why would you sacrifice your own rescue for people who despised you? Thalia looked at the wall of names. Her grandfather's name? Thousands of others, because they would want us to. Because saving lives matters more than pride? Because if we let your people die when we could have helped, we would not deserve to call ourselves human. She turned to face Kethvorin directly. You ignored us because we were primitive, but we have been fighting this longer than your empire has existed. The question now is simple. Will you let us help you? Or will your pride cost more lives? Kethvorin looked at the human woman standing before him, small, fragile, mortal, and yet stronger than anyone he had ever met. He did not answer with words. Instead, he knelt. The image spread across every news network in the galaxy. Hi, Arbiter Kethvorin, leader of the mightiest empire in known space. Kneeling before a human woman in an underground memorial. The picture told a story that words never could. Something had changed. Something fundamental had shifted in the balance of galactic power. Within days, representatives from 12 species arrived on Earth. They came from worlds that had lost ships to the silence. They came with questions, with demands, and with desperate hope. If the humans could truly rescue people from that dimensional prison, then maybe their own lost crews could be saved too. Talia Chen addressed them all in the Great Assembly Hall of the United Earth Coalition. For 2 centuries, humanity has worked alone on this problem. We have made mistakes. We have lost good people, but we have also made progress. The quantum anchoring technology is ready. It works. We have tested it on small scales, and we can now extract objects from the dimensional fold. She activated a holographic display showing the technical specifications. The process requires massive amounts of energy. It requires perfect coordination between anchor points in normal space. And it requires someone to physically enter the silence and guide the trapped ships toward the extraction zone. Murmurs ran through the assembly. Enter the silence? That was suicide. We have developed shielded vessels that can survive inside the fold for limited periods, Thalia continued. Our pilots have trained for years. They know the risks. And they are ready. Kethvorin stood to address the assembly. His voice was heavy with emotion. The Volanthe Empire has spent 2 centuries believing we were superior to humanity. We were wrong. While we built weapons and conquered worlds, the humans were fighting a battle we did not even know existed. They warned us. We ignored them. And now they offer to risk their own lives to save our people. He turned to face the other species representatives. I know many of you feel as I once felt. You think humans are primitive? Weak, beneath your notice. But I have seen their memorial. I have counted their dead. 40,000 humans gave their lives to understand the silence. They did not do it for power or glory. They did it because they believed every life was worth saving. Even the lives of people who hated them.
Ow.
The assembly was silent. Then the Vorath ambassador rose slowly. His species had lost a research fleet to the silence 80 years ago, after ignoring human warnings. The Vorath Dominion offers its energy reserves to support the rescue mission. We owe humanity a debt we can never fully repay. One by one, other representatives stood and made similar pledges. Power stations, mining operations, scientific expertise. Resources flowed toward Earth from across the galaxy. Species that had never cooperated before united around a single goal. Saving the people trapped in the silence, Kethvorin worked alongside human engineers in the preparation facility. At first, the Volanthi workers looked uncomfortable taking orders from humans. But as the days passed, something changed. They began to see the humans not as primitives, but as colleagues, partners, friends. One evening, Kethvorin found himself sharing a meal with a human engineer named Marcus. The man was tired, his face lined from long hours of work. "May I ask you something?" Kethvorin said. "Of course. Your people have every reason to hate us. We ignored your warnings. We mocked your achievements. We treated you like animals. And yet you work day and night to save our fleet. Why?" Marcus smiled and set down his food. "I had a teacher once. She told me something I never forgot. She said that being kind to people who are kind to you is easy. Anyone can do that. The real test of character is being kind to people who do not deserve it. Because that is when kindness matters most." He looked at Kethvorin with steady eyes. "Your fleet does not deserve to die trapped in that darkness. No one does. So we will save them. Not because you have earned it, but because it is the right thing to do." Kethvorin had no response. In all his years leading the Volanthi Empire, he had never encountered such thinking. Power, conquest, dominance. These were the values he understood. But mercy? Sacrifice for enemies? These were concepts his people had forgotten long ago. The rescue mission launched on a clear Earth morning. A single human ship, the Anchor of Hope, prepared to enter the silence. Its pilot was Ambassador Thalia Chen herself. She had trained for this mission her entire life. "You do not have to do this personally," Kethvorin told her. "We can find another pilot." Thalia shook her head. "My grandfather went into the silence 200 years ago. He never came back. I promised myself that someday I would go in after him. Today, I keep that promise. I just have to save your people first." The Coalition fleet surrounded the entry point. 12 species working together, channeling energy into the quantum anchor system. The calculations had been checked 1,000 times. Everything was ready. Thalia's ship entered the silence. From the outside, the vessel simply vanished, just like the Volanthi fleet had vanished. But this time was different. This time, a thread of quantum energy connected the ship to normal space. A lifeline in the darkness, inside the fold, Thalia found herself in a place beyond description. Space twisted in impossible directions. Stars burned with colors that had no names. And ahead of her, scattered across the dimensional prison, she saw the Volanthi fleet. The ships looked battered, old. Their hulls showed signs of years of wear. For the crews inside, months had passed since they entered the silence. Months of fear and confusion and slowly fading hope. Thalia broadcast on all frequencies. "Volanthi fleet, this is Ambassador Thalia Chen of the United Earth Coalition. I know you have been trapped here for a long time. I know you are scared and confused. But help has arrived. Follow my signal. I am going to lead you home." For a long moment, there was no response. Then a voice came through the communication system. It was weak and tired, but alive. "Human vessel. This is Admiral Serveth of the Volanthia Grand Armada. We do not understand. Earth sent a rescue mission." "For us, yes, Admiral. A coalition of 12 species is waiting to bring you home. But we need to move quickly. The quantum anchor cannot hold forever." Slowly, the Volanthi ships began powering up their engines. They followed Thalia's vessel through the twisted maze of the dimensional fold. Some ships had damage and could not move on their own. Thalia coordinated rescue efforts, having stronger vessels tow the weaker ones. It took hours. Hours of careful navigation through impossible space. Hours of the Coalition pouring energy into the anchor system. On Earth, Power grids flickered as entire continents diverted electricity to the rescue effort. Finally, Ptalia reached the extraction point. One by one, Valanthi ships began passing through the quantum bridge back into normal space. Each emergence was met with cheers from the Coalition fleet, but the anchor was failing. The energy reserves were draining faster than expected. Warnings flashed across Talia's console. Ambassador Chen Marcus called over the communication system. The anchor is destabilizing. You need to come through now. Not yet, Talia replied. There are still ships behind me. I am not leaving anyone behind. She turned her vessel around and flew deeper into the fold. Somewhere in the darkness, a few Valanthi ships had fallen behind. They were damaged, their engines failing. Without help, they would be trapped forever. Dahlia found them drifting in the void. 3 ships, 600 crew members. She attached tow cables and began dragging them toward the extraction point. The anchor was collapsing. Energy readings dropped to critical levels. Everyone in the Coalition fleet watched helplessly as the quantum bridge began to flicker. Hold the line, Talia transmitted. We are bringing them home. The quantum anchor screamed with energy. Every power station across 12 worlds pushed their reactors to the breaking point. Engineers watched their consoles with white faces as readings climbed into dangerous levels. One mistake now would destroy everything. Inside the silence, Talia Chen dragged 3 crippled Valanthi ships toward the extraction point. Her own vessel groaned under the strain. Warning lights flashed across every console, but she did not stop. She would not leave anyone behind. Ambassador Chen, you have 60 seconds before total anchor collapse. Marcus called over the communication system. Please hurry. Almost there, Thalia replied through gritted teeth. Just a little further? The extraction point appeared ahead of her. A swirling gateway of light, the only connection between the dimensional prison and normal space. Beyond it, she could see the Coalition fleet waiting. Thousands of people holding their breath. 40 seconds. Thalia released the tow cables and let the Valanthi ships drift toward the gateway. One by one, they passed through and emerged into normal space. Cheers erupted across the Coalition fleet as the final trapped vessels turned home. 20 seconds. Talia turned her ship toward the gateway. Her engines were failing. Her shields were gone. But she was so close. 10 seconds. The anchor of hope shot through the extraction point just as the quantum bridge collapsed behind her. The gateway vanished in a flash of white light. The connection to the silence was severed, and then there was silence. Real silence. The silence of success. Talia's ship drifted in normal space, surrounded by the Coalition fleet. Her communication system crackled to life with hundreds of voices. Cheers, prayers of thanks. Weeping with relief. 12,000 Valanthi ships had been recovered. Nearly 2 million crew members had been saved from eternal imprisonment. Keth Voren stood in the command center of the Coalition flagship, tears streaming down his blue face. He had watched the entire rescue on the tactical display. He had seen Thalia risk her life to save the last few ships. He had seen a human do something that no Valanthi would have done for an enemy. Get me a communication channel to that ship, he ordered. Talia's face appeared on the screen. She was exhausted, her hair wet with sweat, her hands shaking from adrenaline. But she was smiling. Hi, Arbiter, she said. Your people are safe. Welcome home. Keth Voren tried to speak, but words failed him. What could he possibly say? What words could capture what he felt? Thank you, he finally managed. Thank you. The rescued Valanthi crews were brought aboard Coalition vessels for medical treatment. For them, months had passed inside the silence. They had formed communities, shared resources, and maintained hope even when rescue seemed impossible. They had stories to tell. Stories of fear and courage and survival. Admiral Servith, commander of the trapped fleet, was brought to meet with Keth Voren and Thalia. The old admiral looked aged beyond his years. His uniform was worn and patched. His eyes carried the weight of long months in darkness. I did not believe rescue would come, Servith said quietly. When we entered that place, we thought we were dead. We thought no one would ever know what happened to us. We thought we were forgotten." He looked at Thalia with an expression of deep wonder. Then a human ship appeared. A single small vessel from the species we had mocked and ignored. And a human woman told us she had come to take us home. I did not understand. I still do not understand. Why would you save us? Thalia stood before the ancient warrior without fear. Because you deserved to live. Because your families deserve to see you again. Because the universe is cold and dark and cruel, and the only way to fight that darkness is with compassion. Sirvith was silent for a long moment. Then he knelt before her, just as Kethvorin had done. The Valanthi fleet owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. From this day forward, we are your allies, your friends, your brothers in arms. Where humanity leads, we will follow. Word of the rescue spread across the galaxy. Every species watched as the mightiest fleet in known space knelt before a human ambassador. The image became a symbol of something new. Not power through conquest. Not dominance through fear. But unity through compassion. The coalition did not dissolve after the rescue. Instead, it grew stronger. Scientists from 12 species began working together to study the silence. They searched for ways to permanently destroy the Architect's trap. They planned future rescue missions for the thousands still trapped inside, but the victory came at a cost. Earth's quantum systems were burned out. The rescue had drained energy reserves that had taken decades to build. Humanity's own people, the 40,000 trapped in the silence since the first expedition, would have to wait even longer to be saved. Kethvorin learned of this. Sacrifice and called an emergency meeting of the HFY coalition. Humanity gave everything to save our people, he told the assembled representatives. They sacrificed their own rescue to help us. We cannot allow this debt to go unpaid. I propose that the coalition combine its resources to rebuild Earth's quantum systems. We will help humanity save their own lost crews. The proposal passed unanimously. For the first time in galactic history, multiple species committed their resources to helping humanity. Ships carried materials to Earth. Engineers shared technology. What would have taken humans decades to rebuild was completed in 2 years. Talia. Chen led the first mission to rescue human survivors from the silence. Her grandfather's ship was among the first to be recovered. Chen Weilin, 200 years after he disappeared, finally came home. He was old now, aged by the strange time of the dimensional fold, but he was alive. Talia held him in her arms and wept. Around her, other families reunited. Children met grandparents they had never known. History was corrected. Loss was transformed into joy. In the memorial of the silence, workers began adding new sections to the wall. But these sections did not carry names of the dead. Instead, they carried names of the rescued. Humans and Valenthian members of a dozen other species, all of them saved from darkness. All of them proof that compassion could triumph over despair. Kethvorin visited the memorial one last time before returning to his homeworld. He walked along the walls, reading names old and new. Thalia found him there, standing before the section that held her grandfather's name. Why? He asked without turning around. I have asked this question many times, but I still do not fully understand. Why did humanity keep warning species who despised you? Why did you sacrifice so much to save your enemies? Why does compassion matter more to you than power? Thalia stood beside him and looked at the wall. When humanity first looked up at the stars, we were alone. We were small and frightened and overwhelmed by the size of the universe. We dreamed of finding other life. We dreamed of not being alone anymore. She touched her grandfather's name gently. When we finally reached the stars, we found that the universe was full of life. But we also found that most of that life did not care about us. We were ignored, mocked, dismissed. We could have become bitter. We could have become cruel. We could have decided that if the universe did not care about us, we would not care about anyone else. And she turned to face Kethvorin. But we made a different choice. We decided that if no one else would be kind, then we would be kind. If no one else would show mercy, then we would show mercy. If no one else would care about the lost and the suffering and the forgotten, then we would care. Because someone should. Because that is what it means to be human. Kethvorn looked at the wall one final time. Then he spoke words that would echo through history, and perhaps it is time for the rest of us to learn what it means to be human too. He turned and walked away. But before he left the memorial, he stopped at an empty section of wall. New names were being carved there. Volanthi names. The crew members who had died during the long months trapped in the silence. For the first time, the memorial belonged to more than one species. Talia watched him go, then turned back to the wall. Her grandfather's name glowed softly in the light. Beside it, new names appeared every day. Humans and aliens. Friends and former enemies. All of them connected by a simple truth. In the end, compassion was stronger than hatred. Mercy was more powerful than conquest. And love, the strange and stubborn love that made humans risk everything to save people who despised them, had changed the galaxy forever. The silence remained out there in the darkness. The architect's trap still waited for foolish travelers. But now it faced something it had never encountered before. A universe united by hope.